Hey, y'all, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Peace Podcast. This is season 2, episode 24. Just give me the ability to co parent with someone that I can't cooperate with, whatever that looks like. And so, this episode is for those of you who may have been in a toxic relationship, a narcissistic relationship, and you are dealing with the aftermath of that with children involved, or even you aren't on the same accord with the person that you are no longer in a relationship with, and you're still having to co parent with that person and perhaps attempting to parallel parent because co-parent co-parenting isn't working for you. And I landed on this one because yesterday was Father's Day, and something that is really important to me is to making sure that people are celebrated. Even if I don't 100% agree with the way that they do things, I'm still intently focused on making sure that people are celebrated. And most of that is for the people who want to celebrate them. And so I try to think about the big picture of the whole thing and not just my own feelings or my emotional connection to whatever's happening. And so yesterday morning, since it's Father's Day and the court order says that I have to send my son with his dad on Father's Day, even when it's not his weekend, which, he comes with me on Mother's Day. So we made that in the court order. And we were coming off of a birthday party the day before. And so I was really tired and I did not hadn't really planned what we were going to do for him for Father's Day, for his dad for Father's Day. And so, we got up really early because I had to drop him off early. And then I was like, what do you want to do? Like, well, how do you want to celebrate your dad? And his first response was to go buy him a card and buy him something nice from the store. And so we got ready and we were heading out the door, and we were kind of low on time because it was early in the morning. And we were both really tired from the day before. And so I told him, we don't really have that much time. So we kind of have to plan out what we're going to do before we do it so that we can make sure that we're doing exactly what you want to do, but that we have enough time to do it. And so we get about halfway there, and he goes, I don't really think that I want to get the card and something else. I think I just want to go get a donut for me and one for him. Like, I want us to have matching donuts. And I was like, okay, let's go do that. So, of course, we go to Dunkin' Donuts and we grabbed the 2 strawberry donuts. He was very intent about picking which flavor needed to happen for both of them. And he wanted to write a little note on the outside of the bag. And so, in an effort to make sure that we had enough time, I wrote the note for him and then let him sign his name. And he was super excited to be able to hand this donut to his dad and say Happy Father's Day and have something tangible to be able to give him on Father's Day. Now, I have to preface this by saying that there are a lot of things that happen inside of that situation that I don't love, right? So, like, there's a child support order. He doesn't pay his child support. We're currently battling that situation. There are times where he's on the phone with them and he doesn't necessarily say the things that I think are appropriate for a 6-year-old to hear. And so, there are just all of these nuances inside of it. He's not very kind to me. He didn't send me even a happy Mother's Day text on Mother's Day. And I could have responded and reacted in that same vein. So when my son said, I want to go do this thing for him for Father's Day, I could have been like, well, you didn't do anything for me for Mother's Day, so we're not doing that. We're not celebrating him on Father's Day. And I also want to preface this by saying that I have 3 kids and they have 3 different dads, and I have experienced 3 different types of dads. So um, I don't do for one what I don't do for the other. So I'm going to send that Happy Father's Day text to them. I'm going to make sure that, they celebrate their dads on Father's Day the way that they feel is celebratory. And it doesn't matter to me the way that they participate in their journey of fatherhood, because at the end of the day, the important part is for my child to feel like they've done what they feel right to celebrate their dad, whatever that looks like. And so there's a lot of ill feelings. There's a lot of regret and just emotional angst that I've experienced and still oftentimes continue to experience, or a lot of um, like PTSD type symptoms that I'm healing from and have had to heal myself from because of the relationship that I was in with my youngest dad. And I still don't feel like that gives me justification for taking away the experience of him being celebrated on Father's Day. Even if I think that he's heavily manipulating my kid, or I think that he's not really doing the things that I deem to be, you know, the greatest characteristics of a parent. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the way that I respond to my child's father is what my child ultimately will believe about himself. Now, when he gets older and he's experiencing things and it's the right opportunity for me to allow him to question some things and have those conversations with him, I absolutely will have those conversations, but never in a way that tells him that something is wrong with his dad, because if I do that, then he's going to think something is wrong with him. So, how do I navigate that journey? Because it's not easy. And, oftentimes I'm fighting with myself, because your natural reaction is to meet people with the same energy that they meet you with, right? Like that's what we're told. It's all over social media. Like meet them with the same energy they meet you with. And I don't believe in walking that way, because I am called to meet people with the energy at which I should be operating in the world, and not to control their response to that energy, and also to set boundaries around it, right? I don't have to give them too much, but I have to do what I believe is right in the situation. And so the first way that I make it happen in a situation where I'm co-parenting or parallel parenting, which is kind of parenting side by side the person, because you know that you're not going to agree on a lot of things, which we don't, um, is to walk in accordance with God's truth while knowing the people by the fruit that they bear. So God's truth tells me that I need to be a kind person, that I need to do the things that I do to make him proud, and not to react to somebody else's misbehavior, etc. And so when I think about how I'm going to walk in that situation, I have to think about, if I'm doing this as if I'm doing this for God, then I have to do it in such a way that is a good representation of him. I have to do it in such a way where his light shines through me regardless of the darkness around me. Does that sometimes feel counterproductive and counterintuitive? Of course it does, but it's not always going to feel good to do the good thing, because sometimes it feels better to do the natural reaction, to do what keeps you safe, to do what protects you from your vulnerability, etc. But oftentimes that isn't the right thing to do. And so if I'm walking in accordance with what God tells me I need to be doing and what the Bible tells me I need to be exuding, then that's what I have to do, regardless of the fruit that that person bears. Now I know the fruit that that person bears, right? So I'm being aware of it. I'm setting boundaries around it. If he has something negative to say on our parenting app, I just avoid it and ignore it. I respond to him by the fruit that I know he bears, and there's boundaries around a lot of things because of that. But I also am not going to walk differently based on the fruit that he bears, right? So I'm still called to be who I am. I'm still called to walk in accordance with God's will. I'm still called to be a light. And I still have to take into account the fruit that this person is bearing. So am I going to give them full access to me? No. Am I going to take their opinion as fact? No. Am I going to have an expectation or a feeling that if they don't celebrate me on Mother's Day, that I'm not a good mom? No. Am I going to say, well, I'm not celebrating you because you didn't celebrate me, or my kid has a missed opportunity on how he should treat his mom because you're not doing that thing too? I mean, that's true, and that just places the ownership on me to create a situation where he sees that and knows that. I can't change who his dad is or the way that he is. The second thing is that I try to filter through the lens of what will build the character of my child rather than what will break down that other parent. So oftentimes you see people navigating in the world, and when they didn't make a relationship work with that parent, then they break them down so that the child will be more influenced by them than they will be by that other parent. And whether the child should be more influenced by you because the fruit you bear is more of, a good person or a representation of God or biblical principle or whatever, and the other person's fruit really is not that same kind of fruit, doesn't mean that you have to break them down or talk negatively about them or make them into this other person. It doesn't have to be an either or. It doesn't have to be an either you can love your mom or you can love your dad. Either you can be like your mom or you can be like your dad. You can acknowledge the good characteristics about that person. And if there aren't very many, then you don't have to acknowledge that at all. You can just acknowledge the good characteristics in your kid. But if you are operating in the space of filtering things through the lens of what will build my child's character and then shoving out those intrusive thoughts that tell you that you should break that other person down, then what you're doing is parenting your child to not follow in the footsteps of that person. And so this morning, when, when he asked to go get that donut, and I chose to, instead of saying, well, your dad didn't celebrate me on Mother's Day, so we're not celebrating him on Father's Day, which could have been a reaction that, rightfully so, a lot of moms would have had in that moment. And potentially, I've probably done that before in my past, if I'm being honest. Um, I could have chosen that, but what I chose was to say, what's going to build his character, right? And do I want him to be celebratory of the people in his life that he loves and cares about? Yes. And I also asked myself the question, is him celebrating his dad right now at 6 years old encouraging him to be like him or to be a dad like him? And I believe that that is not what it's doing. I believe that what it's doing is saying you have the space and ability to love on the people in your life, and I'm not going to prevent you from doing that. So I'm building his character to love on the people around him in the way that he desires to love on them. I'm building his character to, if one day he realizes that some of the things that he's experiencing aren't, building him up or leading him in the direction that he feels like God is pulling him to be, that he knows that we still did these things even though that was true. And maybe he never realizes it, and maybe he never has the same opinion that I have, and that's also okay because he's not in relationship with his dad in the same way that I was. He's in relationship with his dad in a father-son relationship. And so my goal as his mom is to build his character, to make him a good person, to make him capable of recognizing toxicity, but also to set boundaries around that toxicity and like determining how I'm allowing that to happen instead of just trying to manipulate the situation so that I'm the more liked parent. And I think that's often what we do, and we let our pride tell us that that's not what we're doing, but it's often what we're doing because if they like the other parent better or if they're in aligned with some things that their parent is saying, because we have that hurt deeply rooted in us, we feel like that means that one, they're questioning our opinion about that person, which isn't fair because they haven't lived the same relationship with that person. But two, it's also a missed opportunity because you're, instead of looking at it through the lens of how can I parent my child through this situation, you're looking at it through the lens of how is that going to affect my relationship with my kid. And if you're parenting in a way that is building their character, they're going to witness and see that, and that's going to be what they gravitate toward anyway. When they get to a point where they realize how much you've done to make sure that they were a well-rounded kid over your own emotions and over your own feelings about the situation, they will appreciate that. And I know, not just from being the mom in this situation, but being a product of parents who got a divorce. And I was an adult when it happened, but there were still experiences that I had where I was like, I really wish I didn't know that, or I really wish I wasn't privy to that information. I wish I didn't feel guilt around loving both people, etc. And I make it my mission to make sure that my kids don't feel that. And the other thing is knowing that being a blessing in spite of what's happening keeps you blessed. So It's not about the blessing that you're being to that person. It's about being so aligned with being a blessing that it doesn't matter who the person is. So if I would, say Happy Father's Day to a stranger in the middle of the church foyer, then why wouldn't I be the blessing that says Happy Father's Day to the person that I created a child with, whether or not I feel like, he owns that title or not? That's not for me to decide, right? That's for him to contend with. That's not for me to determine. But if I can send him a happy Father's Day message or buy him the donut that his kid wants, or, make sure that he understands that I appreciate the things that he does do for him, then, and that's taking out all of there's no child support and there's no, like, okay, but he still goes there every other weekend and he's still doing things that, he loves with his dad. And so I don't get to operate in a space where I'm like, well, I'm not going to be a blessing for him and I'm only going to be a blessing for the people who deserve blessings, etc. Because at the end of the day, sometimes the blessing that a person needs is the thing that turns them towards something good, and a change in their life. And so I just value being and embodying who I think I was created to be over whether or not that person deserves it. It doesn't cost me any. They cost me $1 for a donut. Maybe it was $2. I don't even know. It cost me, it was very cheap to buy the donut. But the value that I place in making sure that I'm being a blessing to other people, and knowing that in the long run, whether it be in this situation or another situation, that I'm going to be blessed for being a blessing, and not doing it for that blessing in return, but just knowing that that's how God operates. Um, it just makes me want to shine more of his light. And so I'm going to send the text and I'm going to buy the donut and I'm going to say, you know what, regardless of our relationship, your son wants to appreciate you and he should be given the space to do that. And so I'm going to be the blessing, even if it's not being returned to me, because that's what I would want done for me, even if it's not the thing that's being done. And then the last thing is that I know that these type of situations can be hard, right? Like I cried 2 weeks ago, tears in my pillow, right? Frustrated, just God, please, like this situation is so, so hard. And the situation was hard inside of the relationship. The situation has been hard going back and forth out of court and having to, pull these things out of my character that aren't really natural to me, right? And I still have to hold true to the fact that in any situation, in anything that feels like darkness, there's growth and learning inside of that. It's an opportunity to grow and learn something, because I believe that it's not going to happen to you unless there is that inside of it. There's an opportunity for growth and learning inside of that. And also, there's an opportunity for growth and learning inside of that situation for your children, right? So I had my youngest son's birthday party, and my daughter was at her dad's for that weekend. I invited her dad, her stepmom, and her little sister to the birthday party. And they're family to us, right? Like we don't have to talk every day. We don't have to be BFFs, but they're family to us. And there was this portion of the birthday party where we were playing volleyball, and my daughter was on the other side of the net, and her dad and I were on the same team. And I just looked at her, and the joy that I could see on her face was like immense. And I thought to myself, how beautiful is it that she gets to see her parents interacting in a positive way? She gets to see how much we love her. And even though she might not know the measure of the sacrifice that we make to be around each other and to interact with one another and to learn each other and find the lane that we belong in both of those spaces, what she sees is people loving her and breathing life into her. And that's what she deserves. She didn't choose a family that is not together, not a traditional family. So we have to choose to do the things that make her still feel whole, even though her family is in two places. And so And so in that environment, I was just like, this is such a beautiful representation of the work that we've put in to make sure that this happens. Now, will I ever have that with my youngest dad? I don't believe so. I'll still pray for it, right? But I don't believe that that will ever happen. And so I can't control that. I can't control the willingness from the other side to cooperate, to put in that work so that we can co-parent together. But what I know to be true is that what I have control over is how I'm building up his character, the ways that I'm continuing to be a blessing, and ensuring that I'm walking in accordance with God's will to make sure that my child sees what I believe he should see so that he can grow those qualities and characteristics in himself. So if you find yourself in a space today where you're co-parenting with a narcissist or you're co-parenting with somebody who is hell bent on having control over the situation, who tries to make your life miserable, who still continues financial abuse even though the relationship is over. I mean, all of these things, there are so many. If you find yourself in that space today, I would encourage you to really think about, there may be parts of this that you have to take to court. There may be parts of this that you have to push yourself into a place of discomfort to make the just thing happen. But even beyond that, there are children in this environment who deserve to see that they're a blessing and that the people that they came from can be cordial. And even if it's not, there's no ability to be in the same space. Like, we don't even have phone communication. We have to use an app. And so, there's the limitations and the boundaries are high in this instance. And I still find it valuable to make sure that my son feels seen. And so if you're in that place where he doesn't, you don't want your kid to have to hide parts of them because they're with you and they don't want to show you the parts that came from their other parent, or feeling like they have to hide parts of them when they go to the other place because they don't want that person to feel ill will because of, what they've adapted and adopted from you. I encourage you to really dig deep into this one because it's not an easy one. It's very difficult, and to find your ability and your strength internally to continue to be the light, to continue to do what's going to build your kids' character, to continue to know that you can be a blessing and that eventually you're going to be blessed. And it may not be in this situation, but it's going to be in some situation. And to really think about how the situation is going to help you grow and shape you to be something that you need to be to move into your future. Remember, you can follow me on all social media sites. Send me a DM if you need to reach out to talk more. Also, remember that my videos for the podcast come out every Monday. Listen on Spotify and all of your podcast platforms, and like and subscribe this page, because remember, as I always say, if you listen to this information and it resonates with you and gets you out of some bondage that you're in, keeping that information to yourself is selfish, but sharing it with other people gives them the wisdom and opportunity to be able to break out of the bondage on their own, and it sets them on a trajectory to be able to share that with other people and to show other people their healing so that it causes a chain reaction. So thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate you for coming back every week, and I will see you again next time.